Hi, my name is Katie and welcome to my channel Heart's Content Farmhouse. Today we are going to be making homemade crackers using our discard sourdough starter. This is a great way to use any of that leftover sourdough starter that you have to discard each time you feed it. And this is a cheese cracker that we roll out sort of like a pie crust, but what it tastes like is a homemade Cheez-It. They are really crisp and salty and super addicting. Everyone in our family loves them. And even though rolling out a cracker seems like it would be a lot of unnecessary work, it's actually really quick. You don't need anything other than a bowl, a spoon, and 2 pieces of parchment in your rolling pin. You don't have a lot of dishes when it's over, and it really is quick and easy. The ingredients we're going to need for these homemade sourdough crackers are 2 tablespoons of butter, unsalted or salted, either one is fine, a cup of regular all-purpose flour, 3/4 of a cup of your discarded sourdough starter. This is the unfed portion that you would throw out before you do a feeding. When you go to feed your starter, if it's separated into layers and if there's like a watery layer on top, you can just pour off that watery layer, stir up your starter, and then go ahead and measure. So 3/4 of a cup of the discarded starter, 3/4 of a cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, and then we're going to sprinkle them with kosher salt. So the first thing we're going to do is preheat the oven to 375 degrees. You're going to want 2 racks for this. So you want one in the upper middle, one in the lower middle, about as equally apart as you can get them, 375 degrees. And then we're going to combine the butter and the flour in a large mixing bowl, just using our hands, sort of rubbing the flour into the butter until it looks like coarse sand. If you want to use a fork for this, you could, but it's so much easier just to pick it up and do it by hand. It just takes a minute. Once the flour and butter are combined well, you go ahead and pour in your sourdough starter and the shredded cheddar cheese and just gently stir it. If it seems really dry, go ahead and use your hands to sort of press it together into a ball. If it's just not forming together, you can try just a couple drops of water until it all comes together in a ball, like a big ball of pie crust or cookie dough. Once you've made the dough into a ball, you turn it out onto a piece of parchment paper, put another piece of parchment paper on top, and then take your rolling pin and roll it out as flat as you can. I always try to roll it out to the full width of the parchment paper. I can't always do that. Just as flat as you can. The flatter and thinner you get the dough, the crisper your crackers are going to be. A little bit thicker still tastes great. It's perfectly fine. But if you're looking for something really crisp, you're going to want to roll this out as flat as possible. Make sure you use the 2 pieces of parchment paper because it is really sticky and it will stick to your rolling pin unless you have that protective layer. And then we're going to use a pastry wheel just to cut this into strips and then into squares. And then you can just pick them up by hand and place them onto, you can use the same 2 pieces of parchment paper that you used to roll them out, lay those on 2 baking sheets, and then by hand just place the squares directly onto those pieces of parchment. Make sure you remember to sprinkle them with the kosher salt before you put them in the oven. The salt adds a lot of flavor. If you want them to look like Cheez-Its, you can poke a hole in the center of each square with a toothpick. I don't do this, and they don't puff up or anything like that. So poking a hole in them is really not necessary, but if you want to, go ahead. We're going to go ahead and bake them in the preheated oven for 14 minutes, and halfway through you're going to want to switch the racks. So set your timer for 7 minutes, switch the racks, and set it for another 7 minutes. What you're looking for is for the edges to be brown and for the crackers to be crisp. Once that has happened, go ahead and remove the baking sheets and let the crackers just cool right there. You don't need to move them onto a cooling rack. They're really good eaten immediately, but they'll also keep at room temperature if you put them somewhere airtight for up to a couple days. So we really love this recipe. They are crisp and cheesy, really delicious, and a great way to use that discarded sourdough starter. So if you want to print the recipe, I will go ahead and link to my blog where you can get a printable copy, and I'll also just put the recipe in the description box below. So I hope you enjoy this. It's really simple, and thank you for watching.